Okay, so it is 6 o'clock. So let me get the music turned down and get the cameras switched to the right places. Okay, welcome. So today I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Pelican Hub, some of the letter writing status and updates, and then be doing another attempt at art using the Dominant Industry ink testing book. And I have 10 different inks I selected, and I'll go through those and we'll see what happens. This time I took a little bit more prep and made a cheat sheet of what the colors are, so I know what ink is in what part of the palette. I looked through the book and found an image that I think I wanted to tackle, so I got appropriate colors to go with it. So a little less off the cuff, I guess you might say, for this one. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I enjoyed doing it last time. It was a good experiment to try for the first time. So we'll see what our results are this time, if they end up being better, the same, worse, who knows? But I guess that's part of the fun in doing it. So let's see. So starting out, I wanted to talk about Pelican Hub. So did my audio die? Why am I not hearing stuff? Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button on my little mixer and I lost my audio. Okay, so we had the Pelican Hub this last Friday, a week ago yesterday, and I wanted to go through what we got, we being my wife and myself, because we only registered for one box because we don't need two bottles of the same ink. But this is what we got, at least at the Nashville Pelican Hub this year. And sorry that I'll have to hold this at a little bit of an angle because the overhead light. But the color of the year is the apricot. And I like that they did these little boxes. I mean, it's a pretty nice presentation with Pelican changing distributorship and other stuff and all the shipping international stuff going on right now. It was nice that they still were able to create the nice little presentation box. It's got the card, where you can write down notes about what you did. And I once again apologize for that overhead light. I just have to remember to hold this stuff at an angle. And then I haven't opened this up yet, but from what I've heard, the little tablet of note cards or notepad that they sent is actually decent paper. So maybe we'll open that up on the stream and just try it with some of the inked pens I have. But from what I've heard, it was a good year of paper. That hasn't always been the case with what has been included with the Pelican Hub. And then you get the bottle of ink. Now this year, not everybody got the ink of the year. There were some hub locations where people were getting older inks. I mean, I think if you signed up, you still got a bottle of ink, but it wasn't necessarily the original one. Hey, John. Hey, Fuzzy Turnip. Welcome to both of y'all. Just kind of going over, flashback of the Pelican Hub from last Friday, talking through, what we got. And then got a couple other things. And then the main topic will be trying to do some fountain pen painting in the Dominant Industry book. But so in Nashville, we did end up with the ink of the year, the apricot. And my wife already put this in a pen. She's really liking it. I have not put it in a pen because I inked pens up right before Pelican Hub. So I've got enough pens inked at the moment. I don't necessarily need to add another, but I will try and use this, and maybe towards the end of the stream, I'll do a swatch of it if anybody wants to see it. I think a lot of people went to Pelican Hubs and probably saw it. So Fuzzy Turnip, I haven't opened it yet. I was going to open that up here in a moment and try it with some of my inked pens that I have on the desk. From what I've heard, it's good. So we'll see here momentarily. Because I was kind of waiting for it. I took other paper with me. I took a bunch of the new Krina paper that came with the Mi Plus and gave a bunch of that away. That's kind of Tomoe-esque, but the Chinese version. And that's a really interesting paper. So that was fun to play with. Hey, Lydia. So, but we'll try that here once I can get this plastic. It's very well made plastic because my fingernail's not catching through it. There we go. That's a good plastic snap sound. So let's see what we think of the paper, but from what we heard, it was good. So I'll start out by my most used pen lately, my Newton Prospector with the Mont Blanc Enzo Ferrari in it. So just, it's got a nice texture when writing with it. It is kind of it's a thicker paper and it feels kind of coated. And you can kind of see just from even the camera showing that. But with the smooth, it's actually writing really well. Yeah, it is kind of like a postcard. It feels almost like this postcard paper that came with it. But the postcard actually has a more matte writing surface on the back of it than this paper does, honestly. So it's weird, but it seems to have pretty good, there's no feathering that I'm seeing, and my fingers are already inky, so it's got a good swatch across. So, I would call it a win. And I'm sure there's a good use case for having thicker paper like this. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but this would be a nice one just to keep around on the desk, or if you're giving it to your daughter, this would be nice and durable. So if I don't know if I have a pencil handy with a thick pushing in a pencil might be a good use case on this, but no, I'd try another pen or two here real quick. See how it does with like an Oroshizuku ink. This has Chikurin in it. So it's showing this has a Franklin Christoph Sig grind nib in it, and it is showing not as much variation, and this does have a little bit of feathering. Let me see if I can show that from the super zoom, if this works. So you can see there's a little bit of feathering, like the HI right there, but it's pretty minimal, and some Oroshizuku inks do that at times. So I wouldn't consider that necessarily bad. Let's try a diamine. They do tear out. That is one thing I remember about all the Pelikan papers is they tear out pretty easily. I would assume that's so if you're at the event, you might write with someone's pen or hand them something, exchange contact information or something like, something like that. So this is my Sailor 1911 that I inked up, made sure it had a fresh fill with oxblood. And it does not look at initial appearance to have had any feathering. No, that looks good. And then I'll try one of my finest nibs that if something was going to rip through, this would probably be one of them. This is the Kirk Spear needlepoint. It does have some good feedback when writing with this one. You feel it a little bit more, which for all the needlepoints I have, this is the smoothest. On this paper, it does not feel the smoothest, but it seems to be writing pretty well. It's not there's a little bit of feathering that could be just, wasn't obviously being very careful with where I put fingers on this, but overall, John, I'd rather you not put it on the chat. My email address, if you click on my YouTube channel, it has an email address for the channel. You can send it through there if the form's not working for you. That way it's not leaving your address in the chat ongoing for the future. So that would probably be better instead of putting it in chat. Or if you want to send me like a direct message on Instagram, my Instagram name is DEWEESE, just Deweese. You could send it on there or something, but that way I'd hate to have your address, posted on a ongoing chat log of the YouTube channel going forward. But so overall, I'll give this Pelican pad a good score, I would say. It seems to behave pretty well. It's a nice thick paper, and it is kind of like having like it feels more like a postcard, but it seems to perform pretty well. So that's one I might just leave like in my rickshaw bag to have kind of scratch paper. I don't know. It's, if nothing else for now, I'll leave it on the desk as kind of a, jot something down that doesn't have a specific place in the plotter or something like that. But maybe I'll do next time I'm doing a paper testing video, throw a sheet of this in as well and just do my standard pens and pencils and ballpoints and whatnot, just to run through the full gambit, because why not? Enough people go to Pelican Hub and I might still, I'll have to look and see. I think I might still have part of the tablet from 2018. So testing the old versus the new paper could be interesting. So get all that put aside. And what John was referencing, I have been sending letters out and I'm almost current. I think I have 3 pending that need to go out. But this is the cool part of sending out letters. Oh, John, that's great that the passport cover with wedding it helped. I got stuff back in the mail. And that's really cool. So starting out, these, because typewriters, Lydia, who's in the chat right now, sent those back. These are stickers that she makes, and she has them up on a web store, which I think are really cool. That's a Royal Safari and that's a Royal KMM. So if you're into the typewriter niche or do you just like cool stickers, and there's even a holographic version of this one now. So Lydia, if you want to throw a link to where you have the stickers up in the chat, that'd be great. But these are great. They're going to end up in journal pages once I get a chance this weekend to do some journal type things. And I apologize. I've had like a little catch in my throat. So if I'm muting to cough so I'm not coughing in your ears, I do apologize in advance. So I had the typewriter stickers. This was someone in our local pen club who got to finally talk to more at Pelican Hub, and they had talking about their upcoming trip, and they're part of the Disney Vacation Club, and they're going to Fort Wilderness, which I thought that was cool. And then also they printed out a picture that's on sticker paper from Pelican Hub. So I'm going to put that in my journal as well. And I mean, this is going to be terrible. It's my back, isn't it? So I'm there. Not that really shows anything, but that's still neat just to have that, because I thought about getting one of these little like printer type things. I have a Instax, but honestly, those are a little bit too thick for putting in some journal pages, but I think this will easily go in with some washi. So I thought that was really cool. And then David heard me talking about the Tasha Sabi Midori on a stream and sent me a sample. And it's ironic because I just bought a bottle of this. So I'll probably pass this sample on because I do have the bottle and I have it in my Inso Click pen, which I'll actually show on here too, because I released the video. I gave a little sneak preview, but now that I've used it some, I'm really liking that Click fountain pen. But that was cool. And then this was the neatest thing, like 2 things, and the most surprising. So first, David had an extra. This is one of the shown design things that Ian makes for flushing out pins for a pilot pen. And it's fit to screw into a pilot pen, and then you can use a syringe on the back. You put the syringe on the screw-in part, and then you put this in. It's like a converter, and you can flush out your pilot pins. So like my 912 or my 74, I can use that. I thought that was really cool because it was ironic. I was talking to somebody like a day or 2 before this when this randomly showed up in the mail that I wasn't expecting, talking about I should get some of those shown design cleaners. So I need to use this, and then I'm still going to order ones for the Yovo and the Bach and the Sailor just to have them, because it's a neat principle and a better way to flush water through to clean. And then, so because his name is David, he'd ordered a different nib from, this is from engraver underscore India, I believe on Instagram is what this little tag says, Gaurav Kapoor. Well, when he was sent the nib he ordered with, like, I think he said in his note, like some gear, kind of steampunkish looking thing, the guy included an extra fine nib that had a D engraved in it. And David does not use extra fine nibs. He had heard me talking about it on the channel, and he sent that to me. So now I have an engraved D nib that I'm definitely going to put in a pin, and something that is about to start, which I'll show here in a moment. I know exactly what pin this will go in, so it's not going to be an immediate thing, but it will be soonish. And I'll show what that means here in a second. I have two pictures on a little thing to show, but definitely thank you to Lydia. Thank you to David. Thank you to George for sending all this. That was really cool. I wasn't expecting anything back, but I've enjoyed typing / writing the letters and sending them out, but getting something back, and that's what I love that part, because you never know what's going to show up in the mail. Now, informed delivery does kind of spoil it a little bit, but it's still, I was like, what is this package? Asking my wife, hey, do you have something coming in the mail today? There's a package coming. I don't know what it is, and it wasn't mine. So that was really cool. But for that nib, what it will end up going in is, I'm jumping into another rabbit hole, and I've alluded to this before, but I now own a lathe. This was the lathe that Nick Pasquale of Pins by Pasquale had been using until he upgraded. And with him being local, this now is in my garage. And the process is starting of getting all the other bits and bobs that are needed to start learning how to make pins. Just as I don't aspire to be a full-time pin maker, but I love learning things and I love making things. So this seems right up the perfect alley to go along, and basic documenting from the YouTube side. And just, if nothing else, it's kind of like NASCAR. You'll see some train wrecks because there's nothing to lose by showing successes and failures, because then everybody can learn something from it. So I'm really excited. And then, like, this was from today, I was able to, thanks to Harbor Freight and their wonderful stacking coupons, got the little toolbox where the stuff will go in there. And then that bottom set of black boxes has I think Nick said 600 to 700 blanks in it. So that alone is like a fortune of future practice / pins / nib holder / stuff. I haven't had a chance to go through it. Now that I have the toolbox, I'm going to spend some time this weekend going through and seeing what's in there and just kind of separating out what's what, and learning more about the material. But I'm really looking forward to that. I think that is going to be just a fun journey. And Nick and TriStar Studio, who are both local to me, they both went down the Bach nib path. I decided to go down the Yovo nib, and since this one I got is a Yovo, that's going to go on one of the first pins I make, because I think that would be cool. So I'm supposed to meet up with Nick, and I'm going to go to his shop and go through the full process of making a pin. And that's going to show me how all the stuff that I've been accumulating will work. And then I'll have that pin as a testing bed. And then it's just going to be, time and trial and error and successes and failures, and turning some of those various blanks and seeing what happens. So I look forward to that. I'll make references, and once I start turning stuff, show stuff on streams, and probably do a video here or there. Probably not a ton. It'll probably be like hey, here's what happened over the last couple of weeks, because in a learning process, I want to focus on learning versus trying to film and learn at the same time. So we'll see how that goes, but definitely looking forward to that. Yeah, Fuzzy Turnip, I love working with my hands and learning stuff. And hey, Julie. So I'm just excited to have the lathe, getting all the stuff the postal carrier and the UPS person are going to hate me over the next week and a half because there's a lot of little things, and eBay is about the best place to get them. So I have 7 pending USPS packages at the moment, plus some UPS, and there's some others that haven't shipped. So my house is going to be the very popular stop. I will be kind of an apprentice of Nick, which I'm looking forward to, because he already said, if you've never seen one of Nick's pins, he does some of the best finish work I've seen, like polishing and all the after stuff. And he already told me that he plans to make sure I follow in those footsteps, which I'm all there for. Just it's the 90% is at the finish and fit. Getting a functional writing thing, that's the easiest part. Getting it to where it looks, like a presentation, that's where all the extra time and learning the right way comes in, of polishing and stuff like that. So it's going to be a fun journey. Looking forward to it. But let's move on. And before I get to the painting, I have one other thing to go through. Last Saturday, I went to General Stationer and picked up a couple new things that I'm going to make a video about, at least one of the things, and I have them in a bag as I was getting ready for the stream and moving stuff around the office so I could get to stuff. Thought, I'll show that on here, and then once I actually make the video here, hopefully this weekend, it should come out next week at some point. Here we go. First, this is not going to get a video, but Lockbee, I love their little bags and pouches, and there's a new smaller pouch, and it's a new color, and I just thought that would be handy for leaving in my bag to keep stuff organized. I have the larger version that I keep a lot of my filming stuff in, because I use my phone for filming most of the videos when I'm not doing a stream. So just a neat little pouch, and it will hold some pins, but this will probably be like the ruler, some washi I carry with me, an extra traveler's clip or something like that. And speaking of washi, got 3 new ones, another glue stick, and then I don't know if Lisa's here in the chat, but I'm standing in the store talking to Beth, and Lisa's like, hey, did you see this? And it's a Bell and Union typewriter sticker with plants growing out of the top. So I was like, well, I guess I got to get that. And then I can't get to it easily, but there was some other Bell and Union stationery that had typewriters on it. So I also picked that up. So within the letter writing thing, which once again, there is a link in the description. If you, you did, Lisa, you did do that. So if you want a letter and you haven't submitted your address yet, just follow the Google form link in the description. Actually, let me make sure that link is in the description because I copied from an older thing. But if you look at my community post or the last video, the Google form is there so you can submit. But this is a snail mail forever washi, which I thought was cool. And let me zoom this in a little so this stuff shows better. So snail mail washi. Snail mail is and then underneath whatever it says, it doesn't say. These are iLoop potpourri washi tapes. And I do like having an assortment of the thinner and the thicker tapes. And then this one is a measuring tape, which I thought was cool. If you've ever done, leather work or tailoring or sewing, this is a washi tailor's tape. And I just thought that was neat. So putting some of that on the back of envelopes when mail is going out. I love the bigger pouch. I haven't used the smaller one yet, but the larger one, and let me see. I think I have it put in the other room, but I use the pouch all the time. So I don't put pins in this one. I use the pin wallet that they have, and there's 4 slots in the current one, and they did just release a longer version of the pin wallet. So you can put 4 pins in there that don't really touch each other depending on how the length of the pin. And then when you fold it, I throw the kind of beater pins or like ball points or roller balls between there. So I've put as many as probably 8 pins in a Lockbee pouch. In terms of this, if you were going to put pins in here, then those probably would push on each other because the main body of the stuff. And Lockbee, they make pin stuff, but they also do like EDC pouches and EDC carry stuff. So I would consider this more of an EDC pouch where you might clip like a flashlight or a Leatherman or something like that in this side versus pins. If you were going to put pins in here, you'd probably want to do it inside one of these internal pockets, but these are too small because of they're split, so you'd only have the one. So I would say a dedicated pin case would be a better use if your focus is pins and something. But yeah, John, the mini field journal, I still use mine every so often. I don't use it as much as I did initially now that I've gotten into the plotter and the ring notebook side of things, but I still love the little mini field journal. And they also have the mini field portfolio now, which has the zipper around the outside. That one is also appealing because then you can have stickers or other stuff in there and don't have to worry about it falling out. So, but the other thing that I got is, I've never owned one of these. This is the Pilot Prera. And this is an interesting pin because it's not your starter pilot, which would be like your Kakuno. It's more expensive than a TWSBI Eco, and it's a steel nib pilot. But I was intrigued by it, and I don't really have many, if any, all white pins. So it was a different visual look. But I thought I'd give this a try, and this is kind of a potential follow-up to the week of using only the Preppies and Kakunos. So it's like the next level pin. If I were to get the platinum equivalent, maybe not do as many. And this one does come with a cartridge and a converter with it. It's a Con 40. So I plan to make a video on this soon just to use it and see that it doesn't come in an extra fine, but a pilot fine is still pretty small. So, Joe from Gentleman Stationer did a video. He got the yellow one. And if he would have had more yellow ones in stock, I might have done the bright yellow because I know I don't have a pin of that color. But I thought this would be a fun, pin to try. And since I'm not the biggest fan of TWSBI, I like the precision. Don't get me wrong. But the Eco, they are fine for some people. They're not really my preferred pin. I own 3 that are my, different size nibs for when I'm doing paper testing. But aside from that, those pins never really come out of that the other Lockbee case that I store those in. So I wanted to give this a shot and see, because pins are a personal preference. Someone might not like the demonstrator look of a TWSBI, and they might want to spend a $50 pin. And yeah, it's Lisa picked one up as well. It's one of those. It's been out there a long time, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't get the screen time or the people talking about it as much as some other pins. Because like TWSBI, they're putting a new pin out every week. So it's a lot easier for products that have been out for some time to get kind of lost in the shuffle, so to speak. But I look forward to doing that. And then, of course, if you like that picture that I got in the letter from George, I've really been using these Tombow glue sticks. I've been gluing the envelopes closed on all the letters I've sent out just to avoid licking the envelopes, and that gives an extra little bit of seal. And then I'll put washi tape across the back. And I did find out through a comment that the envelope that went to Alaska that had they wanted their postal carrier to just see craziness, that had 3 rows of the curse word washi on the back and all the other stuff, made it to Alaska, and I was glad to hear that. And it made it there a lot faster than I ever thought it would. So that kind of sums up the catching up. So now let's look into doing some attempted art. Well, John, Ecos, depending on the colors, especially if they're, some ecos are kind of standard colors. Some of the special editions, there's a good resale. So you might look into something like the Reddit pin swap or other things. You might just move those to a new home and then get something that you prefer more. Like an eco, to me, I would suggest everybody try it, and it's either going to be for you or it's not. There's not much middle ground, at least for me. It's either you like it or you don't. And they just ended up not being my favorites. My wife loves them. I know a lot of people in the chat here, like Lisa, has, I think, almost every color. She has the full rainbow picture of all the Twisbees that have matching inks that stay inked. So everybody has their preferred pins. So, you might just consider looking for someone who is looking for an eco and maybe sell those and then get something else. Maybe you want a prayer, or maybe you want a maker pin or something like that. There's always options to find a new home, especially for a Twisbee, because they're so well known. Even if you take $5 off, they're still going to write great for whoever ends up with them. Okay, so this is the Dominant Industry ink archiving book, and this is the second time trying it. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I did go through this time. I'm not going completely blind and literally opening the book and then trying to do it immediately. I planned a little bit this time, not a lot, but just enough to find a picture that I'm like, okay, I think I can do this with some justice. And then I picked out 10 inks that match some of this sea life. So these are blue tangs. I know what those look like. I've seen them diving. I have not seen a mola mola yet, but I know what color they are. And some of these corals, like the elkhorn, the sea sponges, and some of this, like, okay, I know some of these colors. So there is one, this technically I was going to get a purple and I forgot. So I ended up doing 2 oranges because I have, at Pelican Hub, someone ended up gifting me a bottle of Tiger Lily by Birmingham Pen Co. And that is a lot of ink. So I have that, but I'll go through the list of what inks I selected. And I know you're not going to be able to read the words, but I'll kind of go through. So I have the Lamy Crystal Ruby, because there are some of this coral that needs like a red, and that red kind of dries greenish, so it'll change as the ink dries. The Lamy Crystal Agate, because I do need some gray for the Mola Mola. The Lamy Crystal Obsidian, because I wanted to, even though this has the sketching on like some of the black, putting a little bit on there just to make it look a little bit more finished. I have the Rohrer and Klinger Königsblau, because I wanted a nice blue for the 4 blue tangs that are across the page. For the overall water in the background, I have the Robert Oster Blue River, which was the Vanessa exclusive. And I figured that even, you can see that blue, that with enough water should be a nice kind of wash for filling in the blanks. I have the Birmingham Pen Company Tiger Lily, one because I hadn't used the ink yet, and it's an orange, but it's sheened over fully green now that I'm looking at this dried swatch. So that'll be on some of the coral, and we'll see what it ends up with, especially some of these little, they like insect corals. Doing one of those in that color, and then when it dries, that would be, so maybe we'll start with that so we get a chance for it to dry and sheen over. Let's see, I did the Lamy Crystal Rhodonite. It's the pink, because some of these corals should have the pinks in them. I did Robert Oster Fire on Fire, because a bright orange also for some of the coral. I did for the sand that goes all around this part of the drawing here from the, oh, that's the last one. I also, for the yellow, because the back of these tangs, they have yellow and some of the coral, I did the Amarillo Stationery Toasty Joggers, because I don't have a true yellow ink yet, but I think I am going to order from Amarillo his reissued kind of CMYK colors soon. And then for the sand, I did the Colorverse Sailing Stones, which was part of the Inkfint calendar of last year. So let me grab the palette from the side table, and I'm going to put my cheat sheet back up here so I know what's what. And I do have those numbered, and I'll show the palette here. And I'm not going to lie, I've been so worried about like tripping and dropping this entire thing of ink and making a massive mess. But so far, so good. So I'll zoom in every so often. I'm going to start with it zoomed out at the normal view when I get started. And what I'm going to be using for the painting is I have 2 of the water brushes. And this is the technique that I've learned through watching Olive Octopus Ink's various Twitch streams for the Ink Pony Club and those others. And Lisa, if you want to throw a link to your Twitch up there, if you're not familiar with the swatching and art that Lisa does, definitely check it out. Some weekday mornings and then weekend art streams. It's great relaxing background, and I was learning by watching. So she does this a lot better than I do. She's been doing it longer and she knows what she's doing. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, and we'll see what happens. And then for cleaning off the brush, this is actually an Asvine case that I split in half with just a shop towel, so I can kind of dab off between colors. And I can see chat really easily, so feel free to ask any questions or talk, and I'll respond as I'm going. But let's get started with that. Let's see, what did I say? I was going to do the Birmingham Pen Company and do one of these top corals, and I'm going to turn this upside down so I'm not painting over things. And I do just have a traveler's clip here to help hold that down. But yeah, so we want number 6. Yeah, and the one thing with TWSBIs is they are putting out some really cool looking colors. I would rather get maker pins, or now get the parts to make a pin. So I'm a little bit torn on, TWSBIs, but like that new plum, that's not even a color I really like, but that pin looks awesome with the black trim. And, so there's things like that are going to have a visual appeal, or like the Carrera that they just put out with the kind of white marble-ish look. It's really cool looking. And, that's where a little bit of FOMO kicks in. So I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll use that. And then, but I know now that I would get that and it would sit in a pen case and get inked and then not really get used. And I'm trying to be better about that, be more intentional, and, not get caught up in some of the FOMO that unfortunately every hobby can have, but it's really prominent in our little pin world here, because you see people getting whatever's the new one, like the Shown Design Monarch Evo just went for sale. And talk about self-control, an all titanium, fully custom made piston filler with a Monarch nib on it. That checks off so many boxes of want, but I'm behaving because while there is a chance that a lathe and whatnot could make money in the future, a long way away, that pin cost probably about as much as a lathe. So it's all relative in terms of, where I want to focus for the next little bit. But this is interesting when rinsing this off, and I know it's not going to show the best here. You can see it a little bit. It almost has like a highlighter green. The color that it sheen to is what's coming off on the paper towel. And yeah, that's a good point, Tuli, of shopping in what you have. And I've tried to do a lot better about that. Like the papers I have, the pins that I have, because before Pelican Hub, there's some of my pins that I used to use all the time that I hadn't used in a while because they'd been in a pin case. And those are now like my 823. I love that pin. And it had been inked long enough that the toffee brown ink in it turned black. So it needs a nice refill, and, getting some of those pins back in the rotation. I've done really good about the pins that are out on my desk, going through them and using them, but I could definitely do better with the, making sure I'm rotating in with more frequency some of the great writers that are just, out of sight, out of mind. So I'm gonna, a mola mola is darker gray on the top, and I'll try and zoom in for this one and see. And if you're not familiar with the mola mola, they are one of the largest fish. Things get massive, and I hope to see one actually diving someday. And you know, but they are massive. So like you see a picture of someone when they actually see one, and they are dwarfed by this random fish that looks funny because of the way its fins are. Well, it Adeline, it does, but on the sample, it sheens over green. So it's almost like, you know, when you're rinsing some of these Birminghams and it looks like there's highlighter in the clear water. 60 bucks at Vanessa. That's a, I'm going to put that out to people in the chat as well, because that code would not work on a Twisby. It would not work on a Pilot because of what codes do work on. If you don't have an Opus 88, there are some of the smaller, like the Opus 88 minis, that I think are around $60. I love the Opus 88s. That might be one. That's I don't know. I'm normally, when shopping for the pen, more, you know, filling method or looking for like an Opus 88, and I want another one because I like the one I have. So, John, I would say look at the Opus 88s. Leonardo's, they're not going to have anything in the 60. There's not many platinum. So I would maybe look at that if you don't have an Opus 88 and just see if there's one like the minis, because I don't own a mini yet, but that is one that I want to get. Just so I have the different sizes. But the Opus 88 nibs come wonderfully tuned when you get it. So that's always a nice plus of having, you know, I don't know, I'm sure there's been somebody somewhere, but I know there's quite a few people in here who have Opus 88s, and I don't recall ever having heard of anybody who got a bad Opus 88 nib, you know, out of the box. And if you were to get one by chance, you know, especially smaller shops like Vanessa, they're probably going to be pretty good about being able to exchange that out for you. Yeah, Kaweco, if you like the sports, you know, you could get 2 Kawecos for a 60. And I don't think a Kaweco, because I appreciate Kawecos, but since you can only use cartridges on them, that's not one that I normally think of. Yeah, Lisa, you're the Opus 88 nibs being good, but Kaweco, that's another one. I know that there's tons of colors and options there, so that might be something to look at, John. And yeah, Kaweco, it's, if you like that size and format, you can always get a different color or material. The only Kaweco I own an aluminum one that I got in probably 10 years ago. I own a plastic one that's a medium nib that came in a subscription box. The only one that I've really bought and used with intention is the plastic sport piston filler. I do like that one because it's a piston. It's not having to put a cartridge in there. In Fuzzy Turnip, I didn't suggest Lamy because, having, you know, talked to John through comments and videos, he likes the extra fine nib, and the Lamy extra fine is not very fine. Unless, John, if you're switching to different nib sizes, there's always going to be some Lamy options. Depending on. Ooh, a reverse beak. That sounds interesting. I look forward to Arkansas this year because I want to get Matthew. I want a couple more Kodachis. Honestly, I love that nib. Yeah, they have the little converters, and there's other pins that'll use them. But I take it back. I do have a Lilliput that I use, I rotate through my mini 5 plotter wallet. It's not currently in there, so if you're wanting a tiny pin, there's always the Lilliput, but I don't think that's going to come in a little bit more than 60, but maybe a steel or aluminum would come in different than the brass. I don't recall how much I got that for, but that's another option. So there's a few things you could look at in terms, but Kaweco is probably going to be. Oh yeah, John, if you have just the Lamis with fine, then you could definitely get an extra fine, and that is going to be a different experience. And because the Lamy nibs are so easy to interchange, if you like that extra fine, you can order nib only. If the fines are, too large for your writing, you can always pop a new nib on there pretty easily. Okay, so we've got our Mola Molas. So let's try a Blue Tang and see what we do here. Sure that's rinsed off. Okay, so I want the Königsblau, which is number 4. And I think Brad on the Pinhead Extreme Tuesday was talking about one of the most underappreciated ink brands of Rohrer and Klinger. And that, I guess, was in my head when I was looking for what blue inks I had. Yeah, John, there's also the Benus. I do not own a Benu. They're not the visual aesthetic that really fits in my wheelhouse, but I've only heard good things. If you like the look of them, that would be another brand to look at. And I think the Pixies are probably in that price range you're looking at. Well, Fuzzy Turnip, Vaness does not sell a ton of platinum pins. That's the other reason, knowing kind of what they carry, why I didn't mention platinum. They have preppies, but I don't think they have many of the kind of next level, the mid grade, so to speak, pins that they carry. But that is another option, if you're John, or whoever is looking, outside of a certain store, that might be one to consider as well. Okay, so the blue and the Blue Tang initially went good. There's a wood grain one, John. If I was ever going to get a Benu, it's a Benu Pixie and it looks like wood. I think that's the one I would get. I don't know if they have that one in stock, but I would look at that one because it's not shimmer and glitter, which is not really my thing. If you like shimmer and glitter, Benu is like your wheelhouse of all the things, because that's what like their specialty is shimmery, crazy color combo, glittery materials. So I think if that's your color or your design aesthetic, Benu is not going to lead you wrong. Yeah, and sometimes skulls and snakes. It's they just kind of go with down their own path of, this is what we're doing. If you like it, you like it. If not, there's other options. So maybe that's one where you'll end up with, but keep us posted if you find one. And I'm glad you're able to take advantage of that discount code. And for anybody else watching, if you're not familiar, you can use DWRDnet and save 10% on many items at Vaness. I've been fortunate to have Vaness support in this journey, so that's always nice just to save a little bit. And it doesn't work on some things like Pilot. You can't use discount codes on, because that's how Pilot works. You can't use it on Twisby or Galen Leather, but there's quite a few things. Paper especially, because paper can get pricey. So if you're ordering new things, and they do have like the new Wonderland 222, which we were playing with at Pelican Hub, and when Vaness did their kind of pop-up shop at Gentleman Stationer, 2 weeks ago now, that was neat to see. Yeah, I haven't seen the hotline um in person. I think I saw someone reference that, but that's another one that's just a different look for the Bennu offerings that's not as glitter bound. I don't know if glitter bound is the correct terminology for that, but we're going to go with it. Okay. Okay, so then I probably should have done all the different tangs when I had one color on, but that would have required forethought. So let's try and get a yellow tail on this guy. And number 9. And this is why I made a cheat sheet. Let me move this over so you can see. This one right here, number 9, that looks like black, is yellow. So that's one thing I learned the first time doing this, that I could not remember what was in each one. So the cheat sheet is a necessity for me to know what color I'm looking at, because when you've got a little container of white filled, most of these, aside from like the Fire on Fire and the Robert Oster Blue River, look the same as like black dots. So if you get into the art thing, figure out what works for you. That's kind of what I had to do to make sure I'm following colors, but I'm kind of happy with that. That actually looks kind of like a blue tang. The shading is not the best, but still new at this, but I'll take it. And I'm tempted next time is just using my watercolor brushes instead of these water brushes. I think that might work a little bit better for me, but we'll have to try that next time. Maybe it's just switching. So I'm going to go on and get some yellow on the tail of these other tangs. I have this one on here. And this book does have these slots where you're supposed to put in, like, write down what your inks are and whatnot, and I didn't do that. I'll probably go back and try and do it, but I also, this has 9 slots. I chose 10 inks, so I'm just kind of going along with my own path on this, apparently. But there's no wrong way to do art, so we'll call it acceptable. Okay, so because of how this is laid out, I'm going to try and do this coral on the side here. Elkhorn coral, and which color was I going to do for that? Do the rhodonite really dries, not so much pink, it almost dries kind of an orangish. Let's go with Fire on Fire. Let's make it crazy elkhorn. And this is deceiving anyway, because most of the time when seeing this underwater, the colors are not accurate. So everything looks, the deeper you go, the first colors to go are reds and then oranges and then yellows. So that's why most pictures you see underwater, unless they've been heavily color corrected, look bluish green, because those are the last colors as light goes at depth. So it always is interesting, like when I have my dive camera with me and, oh, that looks nice and green. And you take a picture, and when the flashes actually hit and it shows the true color, it's quite surprising sometimes when you get back above the water and you're like, oh, that's what that actually looks like, versus the greenish hue that you thought it was underwater. So let's see here. So how did some of your other Pelican hubs go if you went to one? I know there's a couple people here. I know Anne went to the San Antonio. I don't know if anybody else went to theirs. Yeah, part of when you go diving, there's a little color thing you take with you. Because also at depth, your brain does not work as fast. So like when you're doing your deep diving class, you do math at the like 10 feet down or 20 feet, and then they time you, and then you do the same math at like 100 feet, and you see how much longer it took you to do like basic equations, because you're not fully like disabled, narked, but you just, because of how the oxygen works and all of that, without going into too much detail, your brain is just a step slower. And so when you combine not seeing colors accurately and things feeling or being perceived as slower, it can be interesting. And that's why there's certain limits of depth for certain breathing gases and whatnot. But we'll continue with our art and painting versus gas theory of scuba diving. But there is a little color card you can carry down with you, and it shows. And there's an interesting graphic that went around. It always comes around before summertime of when people are going to swimsuit shopping for the new year, especially for parents, of what color swimsuits show up in certain water conditions. Like, you might not be able to see the red one, but you might see the green one better, or yellow. So just interesting, different reasons for different colors and things like that. So Fuzzy turned up about 100 people in Montreal. Wow. That's crazy for one hub master to deal with that, but I'm glad they were able to get a full restaurant. We had ours in a restaurant and it worked okay, but we did not stay contained in the room-ish area that we had. And it was kind of like a sports bar where that's where we have our pin club every other week. So we were able to use it for free, which was great, but it didn't, it wasn't like an enclosed room. So it was really loud, and it was a little bit easier to move around at this location than where we had it in the past, but still not the best. But everybody made do. Everybody had a good time. It was just finding a location that will fit the number of people you need. And I know that Pelican has where you could start, the hub master could charge a little bit to cover the expense of a room or something if needed. That might be something that Nashville will need to look at, because we were right around 50 people. So just finding those type of locations. So, okay, Ann, that's good. 14 to 16, that sounds like a nice controllable number, but I can't imagine some of these larger ones, 100, because I thought our 50 was crazy. And, I only got to talk to, maybe a quarter of the people, because there were just so much going on. But we did have a lot of newer people, which was good. People who we met at Gentleman Stationer and told about Pin Club, and people who might not be weekly Pin Club attendees, but they like to come to those kind of bigger events. Like there's one guy, I don't know his name, that I saw him at the Pelican Hub in 2018. So he's still in Nashville, but I've never seen him at a Pin Club. So there's some people, I guess that's just not their shtick, which is perfectly fine. But that's just interesting to see, how the different, how different people choose what events they want to attend and what they, want to sit out on, or, wait for something else. But it was still a good time. And this was a new hub master this year. John from Butler Stationery did ours, and I think he did a wonderful job. So that's got to be daunting to take on that task of being a new hub master and having to find a location and then, arrange everybody to get their stuff. Or like, I think it was Colorado where Wendy Sue had 2 boxes of the ink get destroyed by UPS, in transit. So there's all those kind of little logistical things that really have to be figured out for those events to be successful. So props to all the hub masters everywhere who took on that volunteer role to make sure the community had a good experience with the Pelican Hub. Okay, 24 signups. And I think, and Lisa, you might know, wasn't last year we had like 35 and we went up to 45 official signups, but then, you have the others like the plus ones or people who just found out about it too late. And that's where we kind of got up to our 50-ish number, was the kind of extra. Like Beth didn't sign up because we didn't want to have two people sign up. We didn't need 2 bottles of ink. So, she was not in the official 45 number because we didn't want to take away an extra bottle if that, if they did limit, we don't need 2 bottles of the ink of the year. I don't think we've ever finished a bottle of Pelican ink off. Although the Olivine bottle from 2018, now that I've kind of rediscovered that has been in a pen for the past few months. And I think she has it in a pen as well. So there's every so often you find one of those colors that just pops and it's like, okay, this is going to stay in a pen for quite some time now. So I'm already glad I chose this page versus I probably should not have started with the sea turtles because those have a lot more detail in them. These, because of the sketching, it's a little bit easier to add color and make it look better. Now, I can tell I have a lot of work on shading, and that's where I just don't think I have enough control with these water brushes. I haven't done it enough to get good shading and whatnot, but it'll come with time. So maybe next time I will just try out the watercolor brushes. And watercolor is kind of stationary related, kind of not. Maybe I'll do that on a stream, is actually just do watercolor paints and compare one of these pages that I did with fountain pen ink to watercolor and then look at it afterwards. I'm still new to watercolor, but I picked up on that a little bit easier, and you've got more flexibility, at least in mixing colors and shading and whatnot. Well, I had more ability to do that from the beginning versus what I've done with this so far, but continuing to work on this and practice, it's supposed to eventually get better. So hopefully that holds true. Okay, so let's go with number 9. Get these little guys here. John, honestly, I would not get a Noodlers. There's better options, and that's not a pen or a brand you hear many people talking about. And honestly, that's probably like one of those things. I wouldn't be surprised if that's in their grandpa's basement section. I would wait on that. Yeah, I think Noodlers are a flex nib. So if you're not planning on doing flex writing, that's another thing. So it's not as practical for day to day. But I personally would look at a different option over a Noodlers. Okay, I should have done a green. In looking at the colors I chose for the palette, I kind of chose poorly. I don't have any green, and I don't have any colors that will... Well, I guess if I do that Birmingham pen, it should sheen over. So let's try that. Just to try and get enough on some of this to have it sheen over, maybe. So, what is everybody doing for a week from tomorrow for Fountain Pen Day? Any big plans in the? I know Nashville working on. I know Lisa and I think Gentleman Stationer are working on possibly trying to coordinate some sort of local event for us. But are there any in-person events in San Antonio and or Fuzzy Turn Up in Montreal? Any aside from because I've heard quite a few people talking about wanting to make Fountain Pen Day more than Black Friday for fountain pen shopping, to have more community aspect to it than just shopping, which I like that idea, but I was curious what other areas are doing for that. Because of course the online stores will have specials or something like that, but I think the in-person stuff is the more interesting to hear about what different places will be doing for that. Never heard about Noodler's pen smelling, but I know some. Um, is the Ahab made out of ebonite? Because that is one thing. Certain ebonite. Um, remember, I was at Butler Stationery one morning for the coffee, and I think it was Nick who had just made a new ebonite pen, and he took the cap off, and you could smell it like the entire showroom there just went like smelled like ebonite. And I had not encountered that before, but apparently that's a thing. It off gases quite a bit, especially after it's just been turned, to add in some fragrance. So that was interesting to learn about the ebonite side of things. Did any fuzzy turnip? I don't know. I'm terrible at Canadian geography, but how far is your area from where Scriptus was? I don't know. Montreal versus Toronto. Is that like a multiple hour trip? Like, um, once again, I know little to nothing about Canadian geography. Because Scriptus looks like it'd be an interesting something to attend in the future. Just the one day craziness, because it seems like it's massive, and with it only being one day, it just seems like it'd be an interesting. Say, okay, 6 hours. So yeah, that's doable, but it would have to be a pretty good reason, and that's definitely becomes an overnight trip. I would assume for most at that kind of driving distance. Let's see. We'll do this next blue tang. Okay. Yeah, I need to learn better geography for Canada. Just, if nothing else, curiosity, but also if there's people talking about, in related things, to at least kind of have an understanding of what's where. At least state wise in the US, I might, I have a general idea of travel time and distance, but Canada, that's just not something I've ever had a reason to learn, but probably wouldn't be the worst idea to at least have a 10,000 foot view on that. And I just realized I completely did blue over where the black's supposed to go, but hopefully the black will show over that enough. Okay, black we had is number 3. Yeah, not the best saving of that, but what we got. That is one thing. I appreciate the sketching on this, but for some of the stuff, it's so detailed on the sketching. Like if you're going to add color over it and, you're going to lose the sketching underneath for some of this unless you get the color really light. So I'm sure it gets better with more experience, but that is still a challenge for me at this early point. Yeah, Fuzzy Turnip, I'm hoping to make it to DC this year. Gonna go to Arkansas, probably Atlanta, because those are back-to-back weekends, and then I hope to make it to DC. Beth and I have been talking about that that would be a fun one to go to, but San Fran, it's appealing, but it's also a much more logistically involved trip. And it's still early, but normally we go to a anniversary trip every year. And the place that we have booked for April was where the Hurricane Melissa literally hit. So the resort that we were going to is in half of the news stories where there was a lot of damage, and I'm sure they'll have the resort repaired pretty well by April. But since we were going to be diving, reefs take a lot longer to recover after a hurricane. So we're thinking we're going to postpone that to a future time. So that would free up more vacation time / budget / all of that for going to some other shows, or Beth is doing more writing, and she might have some more book events that she's going to be attending, especially when I think her next book is supposed to come out in a couple of months or something like that. So yeah, but that was interesting to see that only so many people could get out of Jamaica, and once they had internet service back, people who were at that resort where it was literally where the exact target was the beach outside of that Sandals resort. And that was just, the pictures are just crazy to see the damage. It's amazing what that weather does. So hopefully, sounds like all the staff and everybody who was there made it through fine, but that's not something I would want to have on my bucket list of riding through a Category 5 hurricane on the second floor of a resort. She writes paranormal romance. So I've not read any of it. It's not something I would read. I'm very supportive of her, but it's not a genre, but shifter romance. And that's about, I know the terminology because I hear her talking about it and whatnot, but her website is bethdeweese.com. She has currently 4 books out. And then I think so it's like a prequel, 2 of the trilogy. The third one of the trilogy is going to be coming out. That's the next one that comes out. And then she has like a collaboration with like 6 other authors where she did one of the group. And then I think she's working on another collaboration. I think it's hard for me to keep track of because it's different things. Yeah, I'm earlier when I went and got that toolbox I showed with the lathe over lunch, and then right before the stream was putting the wheels on it, so that was done. Because I started it earlier and I hated leaving that, but I had to finish working within my lunch break time. So I had the garage open and it was like in the 50s outside, and it felt wonderful. Like right now it's 49 outside, so we're at that fall has actually hit in Middle Tennessee, which is nice, but it's still, it has that look of, oh, it's sunny, but then time will change this weekend and it'll be dark at 4 o'clock. No, I'm really proud of her. She had the goal of wanting, to write the first one, and she spent a lot of time learning the process of how to do it. So as she's added the subsequent books, she's been able to kind of, continually improve and better. And she had her first in-person event. She was on a YouTube interview panel the other day. She's going to be a guest at one of the local conventions in February. So it's the groundswell is kind of building for her, which I think is great. It's just not a genre that I have any interest in reading. I am not a romance reader. You can't imagine that, but it seems like she's getting great reviews, and if that's your shtick of what you like to read, then it seems like she's doing a good job in that area. So I'm going to try and do some of this sand and see how this works out, just because I'm going to use the bigger brush for that. So this is, I guess technically now using another of the Colorverse calendar inks. I didn't even bother getting the Diamine calendar this year because I didn't use any of the inks last year. I have the Colorverse one, and I'm kind of conflicted, and I'm gonna crowdsource with what y'all have to say in the chat. So my YouTube channel started technically November 1st of last year, because I did the Colorverse calendar in November and then the Diamine in December. I'm a little conflicted. Do I do the Colorverse in November again to make it a full year journey, or do I wait and do it in December? It's really the same time commitment either way. Got a lot more experience in doing videos and stuff like that now, so sure it'll be much easier to do. But I can't decide if that's a good, doing it, because it's literally the anniversary of kind of deciding, hey, I'm going to go from just doing this calendar to, oh, I kind of like doing this video thing. Let me just keep doing it and see what happens. But I don't know. So what are y'all's thoughts? Do I do it in November, or do I save it for December? Because I don't want to spoil it for people. I know there's already been quite a few of the spoiler videos out, and they're tagged in such a way that don't watch if you don't want to see what the colors are. But I can't decide how I want to approach that. Did you read one of them, Anne, or any of them? I know that you were following along on some of her stuff. She made a comment the other day, like, wait, who is, your other screen name? It's like, oh, that's Anne. She said, okay. Yeah, she left a comment on something like, you'd watch the interview or something like that. She was really appreciative of that, because as we all have our multiple usernames for different things, it's like, who's on first? Which name am I referring to? I've seen that name somewhere before, but putting name to name is not, that almost requires its own separate part of the brain, because there's, depending on how familiar the name is versus how different it is. So I'm going to try and soak up some of that extra water I put there and hopefully not ruin this. Okay, that actually worked. Okay, so I'm regretting my color choices because I don't really have other ones for variety. So what are my options? Gray. I guess I could do some more orange down there. for the brain coral. Yeah, and that's the other thing I'm trying to decide is because last year I literally did the colorverse each day. I would get up, do the video, edit it quickly, and post it. And that's before I knew what YouTube likes and how, that's not the best way to YouTube, but I wasn't thinking of it that way. Now I'm kind of thinking of it in a different view to some extent. But oh, thanks for stopping in, Fuzzy Turnip. Yeah, I do these most Thursday evenings, and it's kind of fun. It's a variety of either letter writing or art or whatnot. So thanks for stopping in, and have a good rest of your evening. I did for the St. Jude donations this year. One of the things Pen Addict had was you could do a Zoom call with him, and did that last night. So talking to Brad because he has YouTube, but he doesn't really do YouTube, and how it's so different than Twitch or other stuff. They each almost are like their own special discipline of what does this platform really want you to do in order to get form your community, your audience, and that's very different approaches. So that was an interesting conversation. 7. But next year, if he does that again, I would highly suggest it. The money goes towards St. Jude, and it was a fun conversation. Yeah, it's a hard call, Lisa, of because so many people do the calendars too. It's like, once you've seen the colors, and it's not really a competition. It's since I'm not trying to do art with them or anything. I don't know. I'm gonna do them, but I don't know if I'm just gonna like do it all at once, or if I'm gonna. Oh, that's great, Anne. I'll have to tell her that on Thursday she has to go to the office, and there's a writers group who all meet up at a like little market coffee shop restaurant thing closer to where her office is because none of them want to drive home in Nashville traffic at rush hour. So they all kind of stay there and wait till traffic passes and work on their books. So that's where she is. So to let her know that when she gets home. And at some point, one book she's working on. A friend did the art, and the art's really cool. And eventually, she'll do and I didn't know. Apparently, this is a thing in the book world. If you're going to do a Kickstarter for a book, you do a launch party for your Kickstarter. And whenever that happens, she's already talked to someone that Anne, Sarah, and it's going to be at Bound Booksellers in Franklin, which will be cool. Whenever that happens. But okay, let's do what are my other colors? I guess I could do 9. Do this thing up here in like this yellowish. I definitely need to get a different yellow ink because I like this Amarillo, but it's not the right yellow for this kind of painting use case. Yeah, that's the other thing I was thinking in because last year I did have 2 and I didn't want to try to do 2 at once, and thank goodness I made that decision because it was quite the learning curve to do just videos, and then I was doing a much simpler setup. Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. I mean, if someone wants to see the colors, there's in my YouTube feed, there were at least 3 or 4 different videos that were like, "Hey, here's the colorverse or whatnot." So I don't know. I might just do them all and then split the difference and like release it halfway through December or something like that. Or do half of it and release it at the beginning of the month and half of it that releases at the end, the second half. I don't know. I just hope there's colors in there that I'll actually end up using, and that's why I did the colorverse, because I did end up using enough of those to make it worth the while. But those calendars are getting more expensive, and it's like, and that was really the determining factor, because the Diamine, I'm like, okay, it's this much. I didn't use any of the inks last year. That's money that could be better put towards other parts of the hobby. Than trying to, say I did both calendars. Let's see. I guess we could do that other Tang again. So we need number 4. And this one will be more challenging because he's facing us. Yeah, and Heather, that's the thing with the ink ven is, if someone's never done one, because so originally Beth and I were going to open it together, but then we realized trying to film it did not work that well, because it was like, so then I just started, we came to the decision that if I was going to do the filming, we wouldn't really do Advent style. Now I'm kind of tempted to get like an actual Advent calendar, like, because for a couple of years I got the Lego one, and that was fun to do, the Lego Advent calendar. I don't know it, because even now with Advent calendars, there's so many options to choose from as well. You can get decision paralysis just as easy with that. Okay, the ink took over on this blue Tang, so he's going to be the extra blue Tang. Like, so much you can't see, because I am not a sheen. I like a little bit of sheen. I hate shimmer because I write in tiny nibs, so the shimmer doesn't come through. So that's the big thing on Diamond, and the scented inks. They didn't really throw me crazy, but I'm not the best with some scents, and I'm sure there's a reason to have scented inks, but not for me. So those 3 things there, it's like that's the main course of the Diamine calendar is the shimmers, the extreme sheeners, and whatnot. I'm not familiar with that, John. The Wera tool calendar. If you have a link, throw it in and I'll take a look at that later on, but I'm not familiar with that by name. Yeah, I definitely think watercolor would be easier for next time, because I did not choose the right palette of inks for this. So I'm going to start working on trying to do the background water and make it not turn into a hot mess, and hopefully get enough, like, dilute this enough to and I don't, oh, that wasn't showing. I just pushed a lot of water out of the pen here to hopefully tame this blue a little bit. Okay, there we go. That's not terrible, because this Robert Oster is a pretty liquidy ink anyway. So adding in the extra water should be able to make that show. An Inkvent cage match between the two, that would be interesting. And the other thing is I like that Colorverse, they use actual like bottles that they sell on a regular basis. Like the little glass shaped bottle. I liked that. versus the tiny little diamine. So, I mean, that's why it's good that there's multiple options. Because what's the other one? Enigma, where they kind of do their own just custom calendar with ink vial samples. So there's something for everybody depending on how you want to approach it, if you even want to approach it. Because I mean, the cost of one of those calendars that could be 3 or 4 bottles of inks that you're gonna use, which might be more beneficial than a bunch of tiny bottles that you're never gonna touch after you've swatched them the first time. So it's all about figuring out, what your overall plan is. Yeah, and there is that option too, like Lisa's talking about in the Pen Addict Slack. There's like people trading samples of the Inkvent calendars for people who don't necessarily want or need the whole thing. One person could buy, and you can sell little samples enough for people to see the colors. And then if you like it, there's always going to be somebody like who's going to have that one bottle that they're never going to open again. And it might be the bottle where you're like, I need all of it. And you can pick those up on that secondary market for people who want to clear it out of their stash, and you can add it to yours because it's a color that you enjoy and you're going to end up using. So a bunch of options, but so I think I did a decent job of watering down this light blue enough to make this actually kind of look like water. And I think I've done a lot better job this time of staying in the lines on all this stuff. And one thing I did do different is, I know it's not on camera right now, but I put a lot more ink into these, into the little palette thing. I am not skilled enough to work with the smaller drips yet, which once again should come with time and trial and error of doing this more. But I think Lisa just needs to have some Ink Pony Club classes of guided technique to help those of us who are a little bit more, because I know I can pick this up with time, but it's not coming as naturally as some other things. So getting that more guided type art help might be beneficial for me. But yeah, and that's what I was saying, Lisa. If we're able to do some sort of pop-up fountain pen day event, even if it's just ink pony painting, that'd be a fun one. Yeah, I'm hoping that Gentleman Stationer, now that Joe, once that stuff is kind of settled down, that we'll be able to do, like, cause he has such a great event space now for small groups. That would be perfect for like, a few people doing like an ink pony workshop or something. So I'm looking forward to that, use. And then Butler having the space he has, that's another good spot, because I'll have to look at, I might be able to, air quotes, work from Butler Friday morning. I did that the other week when I went to go to the barbershop next door. I worked from inside Butler while waiting for my barber appointment. So that might be feasible again. Oh, that's cool, Anne. I think it's cool too that random people who meet through streams on social media now are able to be local pen friends, like in person, because it's different when you can do stuff in person versus just online. So I think that's neat. Okay, so I'm not going to bother with the left page. That's going to be come back, and since I have limited colors, I guess I'll go again with more. I guess I could do gray. Where's number 2? Yeah, you're not wrong. Our pen club has a lot more newer people who are a lot more inky, I guess would be a way to describe it. We have some people in the pen club who are more collectors versus ink people. I consider myself more like, I appreciate inks, but I don't have a ton of them. I'm more of a user versus a collector, I would say. And then, but we have it's like our pen club had reinforcements arrive. It's a whole newer audience, and a lot of them are more ink conscious and wanting to try new inks and whatnot. So that could probably easily happen, Lisa. Might be a good thing, because even our pen club, we've started doing virtual hangouts on our Discord to have, extra talking. Like we had our first one where we had a topic talking about planners this last Sunday, and that was cool to actually, show what we're using and why we're using it and what we're doing for next year. And having a topic really helped because we had better attendance. So it's where people know, oh, this is okay. It's not just random people talking. We're going to talk about this. So that has some great potential going forward of doing more things like that. Pink is 7. And honestly, I think I'm going to have to come back with a different color of ink at some point to kind of finish this last bit, because the Tiger Lily and the Fire on Fire are so similar, and then I've already have a lot of pink, that it's just going to look odd if I put the same colors in that spot. So, and it's getting on 7:30. I think it's getting close to where it's probably time to wrap up for the evening anyway. But overall, compared to the first time, I think this has been a much more successful attempt, at least in my view, for doing this. And it looks more intentional. I still know some things that I need improvement on, like the blending and, proper palette choice, until I'm able to work on. Yeah, CMYK, and that's where, like, watercolor, I understand it some where I can mix stuff there, but the fountain pen inks, it's like I'm missing that little in watercolor where you have the workspace, where you can mix it in advance. I need like a different palette to be able to mix and see what it's going to do. So I have a feeling doing that when not trying to stream would be more beneficial, doing some of this outside of the stream, and then once I'm more familiar with it, adding it back to the stream where I've had more practice. But like this Tang, it doesn't look half bad. The Mola Mola, I mean, they're all gray, so it's kind of hard to mess that one up, but there's at least some shading and variation in there. And then like the Elkhorn looks pretty good. Wish I would have had a different color, for this. Some of these, they work well, but it's just getting the colors to mix and, choosing the different palettes. But I'm considering it a win, because for this to only be the second time. No, John, thanks for popping in. Hopefully, good luck with your pin search. I mean, this was last time, and even just filling in the water looks terrible to me because I didn't blend it well. Even just the water blending in the color, much better this time. So continuously getting better. There's always next time. And since there's 3 versions of each of these drawings, I can do this same page again in the future and see, oh, that one's cool. A Goliath grouper. Which those things, oh, and a seahorse. Okay, so I'll have to remember that page for the future because I have a good picture of a seahorse for reference. And Goliath grouper are just crazy. I've seen those twice when diving, and they're just massive. Like when you see it near you, you're like, holy crap, that is a large, large fish. Yeah, and Lisa, I'm approaching it that way. It's a learning process. Now, here's the scariest part is putting this not on this desk without spilling ink everywhere. Until I can clean up. I was talking about this with Lisa after one of these because she streams as well. It's how your desk quickly becomes a disaster area after a stream because you're trying to get everything where you can reach it. So it's like you have this circle around you where you can reach in any direction and grab something you need. And then when you're done streaming, you stand up and you're like, holy crap, what happened to my desk? So it's like every Friday morning for me, it's like, okay, come up to my office a little bit early and make my desk usable for work for the day because I have to put the ink bottles away or, move this around, get it to a semblance of an office again, not a production studio of random stationery crap all over. So trying to get better about that as well. But, oh yeah, it's like you're sitting in the middle and it makes me think of, what was it? Wasn't it Lady Gaga's keyboard player who had that keyboard that you sat in the middle and it was literally a circle of keys, like they had to climb in underneath? That's what you kind of feel like, where you're in the middle and you have, keyboard all around you, musical keyboard, not typing keyboard, but that's kind of what it makes me think of because, I can reach to here and I can grab this, and I have stuff staged that if someone were to ask a question like about the Me Plus, I can get to my Me Plus and the plotter. I can get to my other plotter here. I have a drink over here somewhere. Got my keyboard off to the side. So if I need to type something in or find a link, it's, trying to be prepared and whatnot. But I think I'm going to call it there for the evening. The overall art was some success. Hey, David. This is the final thing. I'll do one more zoom in just to kind of show it's for second ever attempt. It's not half bad. It's not as good as it could be, but it's not half bad. So turned out decently. I learned that my palette selection needs some help. I need to get better with these water brushes, and I think next time I'm going to use my watercolor brushes and try those and see if I'm a little bit better with mixing stuff, because getting the water to come out of the brush, it's not clicking in my head well enough to do some of the shading and whatnot necessary for this. But no, and Heather, thanks for watching it. I like doing this where I'm learning something along the way because, if someone's able to benefit from me screwing something up, that's still a win to me. I'd rather just do this and like how it goes, it ends up. If it turns out terrible, oh well, there's more pages in here. I can always get another book or, try and draw something myself. But, there's I had no idea there's a little bookmark in here. See, and then these pages in the back, they have the art, but then they also have a blank page. So that might be where trying to sketch something or whatnot in the future, but we'll call it there. And, like I said, I'll make sure there's a link in this description. If you go back and look the video after, if you haven't submitted your address to have a letter sent to you, you can put in your address. And thanks again to those who sent something back to me. I like the stickers and the nib and whatnot. That is just, it blew me away and it's awesome. And all of that stuff is going to be put to use. And, maybe someday if the learning the lathe and pen experiment become successful, who knows, maybe I'll do a giveaway or something of a pin I made. I think that would be like a goal of mine, is make a pin that I would want to be able to give away, that doesn't, that looks worthy of a giveaway, and then do that on a stream or a channel or something like that. So stay tuned. It's going to take some time because I'm going to make a lot of bad pins before I make a good one, but that's part of the process and I'm prepared for that. So, I will document that along the way, but I'll be doing a stream next Thursday. I think next week it might be more letter or stationary writing letters related. Could be art again. I don't really know because that's next week, and I'll probably figure that out next Wednesday. But it'll be the same time, 6 p.m. Central, here on the channel. And thanks to all of y'all for hopping in. Have a good fountain pen day. If I don't talk to you next Thursday before next Friday's fountain pen day, have a good Halloween. Make sure you have some orange and black and pumpkin related ink in a pen and use that. Send a letter, send a postcard. And until next time, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next stream or the next video that I put out. Have a good one.